Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cha Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 13, the behavior of a perfect person. Text number 9 onwards. So in this chapter, Narad Muni is speaking about sannyasis. Na yate rashramah prayo dharma hetur mahatmanah shantasya samachittasya bibre yadut va tyajet. A peaceful, equipoised person who is actually advanced in spiritual consciousness does not need to accept the symbols of a sannyasi, such as the Tridanda and Kamandalu. According to necessity, he may sometimes accept those symbols and sometimes reject them. So, in the purport, Prabhupada says, there are 4 stages of the renounced order of life: Kutichak, Bahudak, Parivrajkacharya, and Paramahansa. Herein, Srimad Bhagavatam considers the Paramhansas among the sannyasis. Mayavadi impersonate sannyasis cannot attain the Paramhansa stage. This is because of their impersonal conception of the absolute truth. The absolute truth is perceived in 3 stages, of which Bhagwan, or realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is meant for the Paramhansas. Indeed, Srimad Bhagavatam itself is meant for the Paramhansas. Unless one is in the Paramhansa stage, one is not eligible to understand the Srimad Bhagavatam. For Paramhansas or sannyasis in the Vaishnava order, preaching is the first duty. To preach, such sannyasis may accept the symbols of sannyas, such as Danda and Kamandalu, or sometimes they may not. Generally, the Vaishnava sannyasis, being Paramhansas, are automatically called Babajis, and they do not carry a Kamandalu or Danda. Such a sannyasi is free to accept or reject the marks of sannyas. His only thought is, where is there an opportunity to spread Krishna consciousness? Sometimes the Krishna consciousness movement sends its representative sannyasis to foreign countries where Danda and Kamandalu are not very much appreciated. We send our preachers in ordinary dress to introduce our books and philosophy. Our only concern is to attract people to Krishna consciousness. We may do this in the dress of sannyasi or in the regular dress of gentleman. Our only concern is to spread interest in Krishna consciousness. So according to the different divisions of sannyas, so first is Kutichak, then Bahudak. Kutichak, as we have explained earlier. So when the person is ready to take sannyas, so he is not really have full faith, full surrendered unto Krishna. So what he does is then he makes his hut right outside his village. So then he has at least some connections in the village, so he can go to different houses in the village and do his and begging, and then he can go back to his hut. Has no connection with the family anymore. So slowly he develops faith in the Lord. The Lord will take care of me. What's a big deal? So then he goes further out. So Bahudak means then he can go to many villages to beg. And then he starts developing faith. Yes, Krishna is taking care of me. And he starts developing more and more renunciation. No more attachment. And then he becomes Parivrajkacharya. Parivrajkacharya means then he leaves the hut, he just goes out and roams around either holy places or forest or mountains, or in as Prabhupada explains it, Krishna consciousness movement means then he becomes a preacher. And then comes a Paramhansa stage. Now, Paramhansa. Hansa means one who can separate milk and water. So if in a cup of milk, if you give him a cup of milk and put some water in it, he can just take out milk and drink it and leave water in back in the cup. So somehow Krishna has given them special powers, special capability to do so. Now, what is a Paramhansa then? Paramhansa. That means one who can see or take out Krishna consciousness, God consciousness, even from material things. That's a Paramhansa. One who sees God everywhere. Just like Hansa sees milk and he can remove milk and leave water. So Paramhansa can, I won't say remove, but they accept Krishna consciousness or Krishna everywhere, and they don't take the Maya part. So that's a Paramhansa. So as in the shloka also he says, sometimes he accepts those symbols of Danda and Kamandalu because that is the symbol of a sannyasi. So, but for a preacher, sometimes it's not practical. So they can leave that, but still go out and preach. So the spirit of sannyas or renunciation is there. That is more important. Just like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, a sannyasi is not supposed to wear stitched clothes. He does not supposed to wear shoes. Not supposed to travel by car or any automobile, according to strict Vaishnava or sannyas ashram standards. But Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj was the first one to do all this. In fact, he went to Radhakund in a car, and people commented upon this behavior. But then when he spoke and when he preached, they understood he's not an ordinary person. So he came here in a car so that he could save time and preach and then go to many more places to preach. But at the same time, we have to see where is my heart. Of course, I'm not saying everybody should take sannyas, but here sannyas means one who preaches and uses everything in the service of Krishna, the preaching mission. But then if we buy expensive phones and laptops and cards and this and that and think that, oh, I'm going to use it or I'm using it in the service of the Lord by preaching, we have to see, this is all about introspection. Am I really using it or I'm getting attached to all these things, expensive things? Am I really using it for Krishna service or this is for my ego satisfaction? That we have to see. And even if we lie to or deceive everybody else, we cannot deceive Krishna. He is sitting in our heart as Paramatma. But the main purpose is to spread Krishna consciousness. Avyakta lingo vyaktartho manishi unmat palavat kavir muk vadatmanam sadrishtya darshayen nrinam. Although a saintly person may not expose himself to the vision of human society, by his behavior, his purpose is disclosed. To human society, he should present himself like a restless child. And although he is the greatest thoughtful orator, he should present himself like a dumb man. Why? A great personality, very much advanced in Krishna consciousness, may not expose himself by the signs of a sannyasi. To cover himself, he may live like a restless child or a dumb person, although he is the greatest orator or poet. And we have studied two of the such sannyasis earlier about Jad Bharat and Maharaj Rishabdev. They just completely covered themselves. They didn't want. Why? Because they don't want any respect from the people, because they think it might go in their heads and they might become proud. Now, again, for preaching purposes, um, a person has to take up this dress of a sannyasi and the role of a sannyasi, so that, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did, because people were committing offenses against him, and he said, if I take sannyas, then they will at least the people generally pay respects to a sannyasi, so at least that way they will make advancement. And if they listen and they follow, they'll make further advancement. So both ways it is true. It just depends. If something is coming as an obstacle in my path of bhakti, to obstacle in my progress, then we should just remove that obstacle. Atrapi harantim itihasam puratanam prahadasya cha sambadam munera rajagarasya cha. As a historical example of this, the learned sages recite the story of an ancient discussion between Prahlad Maharaj and a great saintly person who was feeding himself like a python. So this is another story of Prahlad Maharaj, because when he was a king after Hiranyakashipu was killed, so then he had to go out and take care of his population and see what happened. The saintly person met by Prahlad Maharaj was undergoing Ajagar Vritti, or it should be Ajagar Vritti, the living conditions of a python, which does not go anywhere but sits in one place for years and eats whatever is automatically available. Prahlad Maharaj, along with his associates, met this great saint and spoke to him as follows. And this Ajagar Vritti was also displayed by Maharaj Rishabdev. When he was just sitting at one place and he was passing stool and urine over there, and if somebody comes and gives him something to eat, he would eat. Otherwise, he would just sit and meditate. And of course, people were passing by, they were passing and they were throwing stones at him, passing stool or urine at him, but he did not mind. He was way beyond everything, anything material. Tam shayanam dharopaste kaveryam sahayasanuni rajas valastanu deshar nigula malate jasam dadarshalokan vicharan lok tattva vivitsaya vrito amatya katipaya prahado bhagvat priyaha. Prahlad Maharaj, the most dear servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, once went out touring the universe with some of his confidential associates just to study the nature of saintly persons. Thus he arrived at the banks of the Kaveri, where there was a mountain known as Saya. There he found a great saintly person who was lying on the ground, covered with dirt and dust, but who was deeply spiritually advanced. So look at this. Prahlad Maharaj once went out touring the universe, not just planet Earth, not just one heavenly planet or one city or one block of the heavenly planet, whole universe, with some of his confidential associates. Karmana kriti bhirvacha lingar varnashramadivi na vidanti jana yamve so asaviti naveti cha. Neither by that saintly person's activities, by his bodily features, by his words, nor by the symptoms of his varnashram status could people understand whether he was the same person they had known. The inhabitants of that particular place on the bank of the Kaveri in the valley of the mountain known as Saya were unable to understand whether that saintly person was the same man they had known. It is therefore said, Vaishnavera Kriya Mudra Vigyayana Vujaya. A highly advanced Vaishnav lives in such a way that no one can understand what he is or what he was. Nor should attempts be made to understand the past of a Vaishnav without asking the saintly persons about his previous life. Prahlad Maharaj immediately offered him respectful obeisances. So this is how he was living. So obviously earlier he must be well known in the neighborhood or in the community, but now he had adopted this Ajagar Vritti, means not going anywhere, just sitting and lying down at a place and completely absorbed in the thoughts of the Lord. But people could not understand what he is, who he is. But Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj himself is such a great saint, great devotee. He could understand this person is not an ordinary person. So he offered him respectful obeisances. Tam natvabhyarachya vidhivat padayo shirsa sprishan vivitsuridam prakshina mahabhagavato asuraha. The advanced devotee Prahlad Maharaj duly worshipped and offered obeisances to the saintly person who had adopted a python's means of livelihood. After thus worshipping the saintly person and touching his own head to the saint's lotus feet, Prahlad Maharaj, in order to understand him, inquired very submissively as follows. So see, it's so difficult to even recognize a saintly person. How would we know that person is saintly? He was just lying on the side of a street. But Prahlad Maharaj could understand. That's why it is said only a Vaishnava can understand other Vaishnava. Bibarshi kayam pivanam sodyamo bhogavana yatha vittam chaivodyam avatam bhogo vittavatam iha bhoginam khalu dehovayam pivan bhavati nanyatha. Seeing the saintly person to be quite fat. He was fat. He was not thin and haggardly because he had nothing to eat. See, Krishna was really taking care of him. Prahlad Maharaj said, my dear sir, you undergo an endeavor to earn your livelihood. You undergo no endeavor to earn your livelihood, but you have a stout body, exactly like that of a materialistic enjoyer. I know that if one is very rich and has nothing to do, he becomes extremely fat by eating and sleeping and performing no work. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did not like his disciples to become very fat in the course of time. He would become very anxious upon seeing his fat disciples becoming bhogis or enjoyers of the senses. This attitude is herewith confirmed by Prahlad Maharaj, who was surprised to see a saintly person adopting Ajagar Vritti and becoming very fat. In the material world also, we generally see that when a man who's poor and skinny gradually endeavors to earn money through business or some other means, and then when he gets the money, he enjoys the senses to his satisfaction. By enjoying the senses, one becomes fat. Therefore, in spiritual advancement, becoming fat is not at all satisfactory. But somehow, this saintly person was quite fat. Nate shayanasya nirudyamasya brahmanu hiyartho yata eva bhoga abhogi no ayam tava vipra deha piva yatastad vad nakshamam cheta. O Brahman, fully in knowledge of transcendence, you have nothing to do, and therefore you're lying down. It's also understood that you have no money for sense enjoyment. How then has your body become so fat? Under the circumstances, if you do not consider my quotient imputent, kindly explain how this has happened. So Prahlad Maharaj wanted to make sure this apparent contradiction is answered. Generally, those engaged in spiritual advancement take food only once, either in the afternoon or in the evening. If one takes food only once, naturally he does not become fat. The learned sage, however, was quite fat, and therefore Prahlad Maharaj was very much surprised. Because of being experienced in self-realization, a transcendentalist certainly becomes bright-faced. And one who is advanced in self-realization must be considered to possess the body of a Brahman. Because a bright-faced, saintly person was lying down and not working and yet was quite fat. Prahlad Maharaj was puzzled and wanted to question him about this. So it sounds like very impudent inquiry. If I go to some devotee and I say, why you are so fat? That will sound like very insulting inquiry. But because it is Prahlad Maharaj, who's the king of the universe at that time, and he's not commenting on the lack of spirituality on part of saintly person. He's saying, you are very saintly, looks like very saintly, but how come you're so fat? कवि कल्प निपुण दृक् चित्र प्रिय कथा समः लोकस्य कुर्वतः कर्म शेषे तद्वीक्षितापि वा. Your honor appears learned, expert, and intelligent in every way. You can speak very well, saying things that are pleasing to the heart. You see that people in general are engaged in fruitive activities, yet you are lying here inactive. Prahlad Maharaj studied the bodily features of the saintly person, and although the saint's physiognomy, Prahlad Maharaj could understand that he was intelligent and expert. Although he was lying down and not doing anything, Prahlad was naturally inquisitive about why he was lying there inactive. Shri Narad Vacha, Saitham Datyapatina, Pariprishto Mahamuni, Smay Manas Tamabhyaha, Tadvag Mrityam Tritaha. Narad Muni continued, when the saintly person was thus questioned by Prahlad Maharaj, the king of the Daityas, he was captivated by his shower of nectarian words, and he replied to the inquisitiveness of Prahlad Maharaj with a smiling face. Shri Brahman Vacha Vededam Surashreshta Bhavannan Varya Sammataha Iho Paramayor Naranam Padanya Dhyatma Chakshusha. The saintly Brahman said, O best of the Asuras, Prahlad Maharaj. See, Prahlad Maharaj also called his father a best of the Asuras. But that was because he was an Asura. And here Brahma is calling Prahlad Maharaj a best of the Asuras because he was a devotee among all the Asuras. So he was the best in that way. O best of the Asuras, Prahlad Maharaj, who are recognized by advanced and civilized men, you are aware of the different stages of life because of your inherent transcendental eyes, with which you can see a man's character and thus know clearly the results of acceptance and rejection of things as they are. A pure devotee like Prahlad Maharaj can understand the minds of others because of his pure vision and devotional service. A devotee like Prahlad Maharaj can study another man's character without difficulty. So how can you see why he was spiritually so advanced and he had pure vision? And another thing is, when somebody is spiritually advanced, Paramatma in the heart, he also helps. He tells the right thing. Yasya Narayano Devo Bhagwan Hrid Gataha Sada Bhaktya Kevala Yagyanam Dhunoti Dhvantam Arkvat. Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is full of all opulences, is predominant within the core of your heart. because of your being a pure devotee. He always drives away all the darkness of ignorance, as the sun drives away the darkness of the universe. The words Bhaktya Kevalya indicate that simply by executing devotional service, one can become full of knowledge. Krishna is a master of all knowledge. The Lord is situated in everyone's heart, and when the Lord is pleased with the devotee, the Lord instructs him. Only to the devotees, however, does the Lord give instructions by which to advance further and further in devotional service. To others, the non-devotees, the Lord gives instructions according to the manner of their surrender. Ye yatha mam prapadyante. But for devotees, devotees already surrendered. So he gives them instructions directly. The pure devotee is described by the words Bhaktya Kevalya. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that Bhaktya Kevalya means Jnana Karmadi Amishreya, unmixed with fruitive activities or speculative knowledge. Simply surrendering at the lotus feet is a cause of a devotee's enlightenment and awareness. So this is how a devotee knows everything, sometimes or most of the time, because the Paramatma is sitting in the heart. And also, and Paramatma or Krishna is full of six opulences, and knowledge is one of the opulence. And also when a soul is situated in its original position, now soul is made of Sat, Chit and Ananda. Sat means eternality, Chit means knowledge, Ananda means bliss. So the knowledge is always there in the soul. All the knowledge is there because we are part and parcel of Krishna. And in our pure state, we have all the knowledge. Nothing is lacking. It just as a living entity uses that in the spiritual world, uses whatever knowledge is required to serve Krishna. That's all. He has all the knowledge. But when we fall in the material world, we get covered over, so the knowledge also gets covered over. And then we try to make progress in the material or technical knowledge, which according to scriptures is only ignorance. And so the covering is there, and covering we end up making thicker and thicker because of our ignorance of falling in the material world, being conditioned. So when we take up devotional service, so this covering starts getting removed. So the real knowledge, which is hidden or covered up, it starts coming through, start shining forth. Not just the knowledge, everything, all the qualities of the soul. And so one of the qualities is knowledge, full of all knowledge. And also Krishna sitting as Paramatma, he also helps. So that is why the saintly, the really advanced saintly persons, there's so much of knowledge, so much of spirit. Look at all the purports that Prabhupada has written. It's amazing. Of course, Prabhupada said Krishna personally dictated everything, which is true, about why Prabhupada lie. But at the same time, he also had so much of knowledge, just like when he would interview people or talk to people, talk to even big professors, big scholars from different walks of life, and big scholars of even Shastras. He would just defeat everybody. That's also happens. So this saintly person, he is appreciating Prahlad Maharaj's qualities, and let's see what he speaks tomorrow. So we'll stop here, see anybody has any questions or comments. Okay, you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Ram.
Hare Krishna.